Here, UG Krishnamurti interviewed by the Donald Ingram Smith on 7th March 1990. Let's dive into the video.
What exactly do we mean by life? Nobody knows anything about life, and there is no point in defining life. Anything we know of life is a speculation on our part, and what we are trying to understand, touch, or experience life is through the help of the knowledge we have. So thought is something dead. So it is something that can never touch anything living. The moment it tries to touch life and capture that, contain it and giving expression to it, it is destroyed by the living quality of life. But what we mean by life is not actually life, but living. So living is our relationship with the people around us, with the life around us, with the whole world around us. And that's all that we know. And it is in this process that we try to establish our relationship. And that relationship is actually not the basic relationship, but relationship that is born out of our demand to become part of the one again. So anything we do, any attempt we make is fruitless because there is no way we can establish any relationship with that life around and become one with it.
Why do we assume that we are not part of that one? Wherein does this
I am
arise?
not for a moment assuming or emphasizing that we are not part of it. We are part of it. And the most important question which we should ask for ourselves is, what is it that separates us from the life around us? And what is it that keeps this separateness or division, if I may use the word, all the time?
Right.
So, what is it that divides is the thought.
Yes.
Thought is matter, but that matter cannot stay there for long. The moment the matter is born, it has to become part of energy again. But through this demand on our part, or on the part of thought, to maintain its continuity, is the one that demands to experience the same thing over and over and over again. Through this constant demand for experiencing the same thing over and over again, we are maintaining this superficial, artificial, non-existent duality, division there between life and the life around us.
Now, as thought seems to have come from the brain and part of that, would you say that the only function of the brain is to take care of the body and to coordinate its functions, and only that?
Yeah, it is an assumption on our part, and I would say it's a false assumption on our part that the thoughts are spontaneous and self-generated. They are not. And thought is only a response to the stimulus. Brain is not really a creator. It is just a container. And its function in this body is only to take care of the needs of the physical living organism.
Right. Now,
And to maintain its sensitivity.
yes.
Whereas the thought, through its constant interference with the sensory activity, is destroying the sensitivity of the body. That is where the conflict is. The conflict is between the need for the body to maintain its sensitivity and the demand of the thought to translate every sensation within the framework of the sensual activity. I am not condemning sensual activity. Mind, or whatever word you want to use, is born out of the sensuality. So all activities of the mind are sensual in their nature, whereas the activity of the body is to respond to the stimulus or stimuli around it. So that is really the basic conflict between what you call mind and the body.
Then you would say that the mind or the brain has really no non-physical traits.
I don't think is there any such thing as mind separate from the activity of the brain.
Then let's say the word brain rather than mind. And the brain has no other function than it has no non-physical function.
It is not interested in the sensual activity. It is not interested in any experiences that the mind is interested in and is demanding. It is not even interested in the so-called spiritual experiences, religious experiences like bliss, beatitude, immensity, and happiness. So happiness is something which the body is not interested in. It cannot take it for long. Pleasure is one of the things that it is always rejecting it. The body does not know or doesn't even want to know anything about pleasure.
And happiness is only a brain quality or a thinking quality?
Happiness is cultural input there. It is there any such thing as happiness? I would say no. You see. So the quest for happiness is a cultural input there.
Right.
And that is the common thing that we know that it exists everywhere, in every part of the world. That is what we all want, and that want is the most important want in the human beings, everywhere.
So always looking for something in the future. The quest
for happiness.
Yes.
Since the happiness, if you want to use that word, is like any other sensation there. The moment you separate yourself from, the thought separates itself from what is called the sensation of happiness, the demand to keep that going longer than its natural duration also goes with it.
Good.
So any sensation, however extraordinary, however present it may be, the body is rejecting it. Because keeping that going longer than its natural duration of life is destroying the sensitivity of the sensory perceptions and sensitivity of this living organism. So that's the battle that is going on there. So if I may say that if you do not know what happiness is, you will never be unhappy.
Yes. Good. Now, still pursuing this body part, if you strip the body of all the psychological factors and all its attributes, would you say then that there is no difference between the human and the animal?
Not at all. We are like all the animals. And we are no different, and we are not created for any grander purpose other than the mosquito that is sucking your blood.
But is there any difference, is there any apparent difference between the human being and the normal sensate animal?
It is the thinking that has separated us from, you see, the other species on this planet, and it is that we want to maintain, you know. So it is that is responsible for all the problems that human mind, quote and unquote, has created.
I'm still pursuing this, right? You see, there is biological survival, obviously. It goes on from day to day, week to week, and year to year. Wherein lies the urge then, or the desire for personal survival, or for the survival of something else, or for the, not in the survival of myself, but myself in the state we've just been talking about.
As I said a while ago, we have separated ourselves from the rest of the species. And through the help of this thinking, it has become possible for us to make it possible for us to survive better than, create conditions, better conditions, and survive longer than the other species.
Why is it, do you think, that we like to live in this illusion? Because it is an illusion. Why does the illusion persist?
The illusion persists because if the illusion comes to an end, what is called the clinical death will take place. So if we give up one illusion, we will always replace that illusion with another illusion.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
That is the one that gives us the feeling to conquer the inevitable end of that. You see, that is the only death that is there. There is no such thing as death at all. And the death is the end of the illusion, the end of fear, the end of the knowledge we have of ourselves and the world around us.
Now, all this raises the question, as we've been talking, of what might intelligence be? Because in a sense, what we have our discussion and the movement through is we're talking about the physical, but it's being taught in words. And so there is the natural intelligence of the body, which we've talked about, with all its healthy and harmonious and interrelated functions. But is there any other area where intelligence may have a function except the physical?
No. See, the body does not want to know anything. The body does not want to learn anything. So the intelligence that is necessary for its survival is already there. We have, fortunately or unfortunately, as the case may be, acquired what is called intellect. You see, through the constant use of thought and reshaping that, we have acquired this, what is called intellect, and through the help of that, it has become possible for us to live longer than the other species. So that in its own way is the cause of the destruction of the whole thing that we have created for our survival.
Right.
So there is no way escaping from the fact that the acquired intellect, which is the product of our thinking, has helped us to survive longer than the other species.
Now, still on this intelligence then, what you're saying is that there is, intelligence is in no way distinct from or indistinguishable from animal survival.
Probably we are, and the functioning of this body and the brain is more evolved than in the case of animals. More evolved.
What do you mean
That
by
does
that?
not mean that we are any better than the other species. So if what they say is true,
But there's
the
no
constituent elements of this body, if they are broken into their constituent elements, there is no difference between the constituent elements of the human body or the tree out there, or the wallaby, or whatever you want to call it,
Wallaby.
or the wallaby, or even the mosquito that is sucking your blood. Basically, it is exactly the same. The proportions may be higher in one case and lesser in the case of the others, but you have 80% of water there in the body. That tree out there is 80% of water. On this planet, 80% is water.
Right.
So that is the reason why I maintain that this is nothing but a fortuitous concourse of atoms. If and when death takes place, the body is reshuffled, and then these atoms are used to maintain the energy levels. Other than that, there is no such thing as death for this body.
Is there then, is the human mind then, or brain, like the dolphin's mind or brain, is said to be subtler or more sensitive than, say, the tree?
If what they say is true, probably the dolphins are more intelligent than the most human beings
I agree
we
with
have
that.
in our midst today, including me.
Yes. Yes, they live completely within their environment and beautifully.
Yes.
But now,
They don't try to change anything. That's
Right.
the most important thing that we have to understand. The demand to bring about a change in us is the cultural input. And what is there to be changed? That's my basic question. Is there anything there to be changed, radically or otherwise?
so you would say...
I say no.
No.
So
I agree
we
with
have to find out for ourselves and by ourselves, what is there? Is there an entity there? Is there a self there? Is there a I there? My answer is no. What you see there is created by the knowledge we have of that the knowledge of self, the knowledge of I, the knowledge of the entity there is passed on to us from generation to generation. All that is the cultural input.
Yes. Now, UG, is not our very dialogue now, as we're talking, our probing together, isn't that a function of another dimension and not necessarily physical?
Do you think that we are trying to establish any communication here?
No, but there is there is a relationship.
No. As long as you and I use the instrument which we are using to communicate to you and on your part to understand what I am saying,
Yes.
no understanding is possible. So you are always translating every statement of mine within the framework of the knowledge you have. That is what I call the reference point. So, yes.
I'm in complete agreement with that. But it's rather what I'm saying is the fact that we are talking together. There is a kind of a relationship which you then say also is completely physiological.
Physiological. That relationship is already there.
Right.
Yes. So what is it that separates me from you? Is the knowledge I have separates me from you and you from me. So what is it that we are trying to do now? To establish a sort of a relationship on a different level.
Yes.
So that is not the instrument, and there is no other instrument, and no other instrument is necessary to understand anything.
Right.
If that is not the instrument and there is no other instrument, no understanding is necessary.
Right.
That is the understanding. Somehow it dawned on me that there is nothing to understand. How it occurred, I really don't know. I have no way of knowing it, and I have no way of helping somebody to understand that that is not the instrument and there is no other instrument, and no instrument is necessary for us to feel that there is nothing to understand.
Then what would you say was meant probably by the famous Greek sayings, know thyself?
Man, know thyself.
Yep.
Man, know thyself was born out of the assumption that there is something other than what you know of yourself. That is why even in India, some of these saints like Ramana Maharshi, when people pestered him with all kinds of questions, what he would suggest for them to do, he threw this question, who am I? So even that question is not an intelligent question, because we assume that there is some I there, the nature of which you do not know. And you have to inquire into the nature of that I. As far as I'm concerned, the only I have is the first person singular pronoun. And I did not succeed, and I don't think I will ever succeed in finding out for myself if there is any other I other than the I use for purposes of simple communication. To separate you from me, I say I and you.
My body and your body.
Your body.
And the consciousness of the body?
The consciousness of the body does not exist. There is no such thing as consciousness at all. The one thing that helps us to become conscious of the non-existing body for all practical purposes, to create this body and experience this body, is through the help of the knowledge that is given to us. Without that knowledge, you have no way of creating your own body and experiencing your own body. So I am questioning the very consciousness itself, let alone the subconscious, the unconscious, and different levels of consciousness, higher states of consciousness. I don't see there is any such thing as consciousness. I become conscious of this only through the knowledge I have. I become conscious of you, the knowledge I have.
Only?
The knowledge.
Just let me play you a little bit. If I
Yes.
take your hand,
Yes.
is it knowledge that tells you
No,
the touch?
that touch does not tell anything except when I translate that touch, the sense of touch, within the framework of knowledge. I have no way of experiencing that touch at all. So,
Again?
all right, you see, the way the senses are operating here are quite different from the way we are made to believe. The eye is looking at the movement of your hand, touching this, does not say anything about this activity except to observe what is going on there.
Right. And to feel it.
No, feeling is also a translation. This touch does not say anything except through the help of the knowledge we have about the sense of touch. That this is soft, not hard. You have no way of experiencing the fact that is soft.
All right.
I don't know if it makes any sense.
No, it makes great sense, but it seems to me that when you do touch, there is a sense, essentially, that the body also knows what it's about.
No, that sensation is the sense of touch is translated by the activity of the memory, the neurons, or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And then only you say that it is soft and not hard. So you can kid yourself by telling that this is touch is one with feeling, and not just a simple touch, the touch to touch a table like this, but all that is superimposed on that.
Let me play you a little bit further. If
Yes, go
if
ahead.
you touch a cat's tummy, it
Yes.
begins to purr. Wouldn't it just be purely physiological, the sensation?
If it is left purely on the physiological level, there is no reaction on your part.
No, but on its part there is.
That is the physical response. It is
That's
not to translate. Probably that is a kind of a pleasure for the cat too.
Yes.
I really don't know. I have no way of finding out whether that is the response of pleasure or pure and simple physical response to the touch.
Yes, right.
You know, people always ask me, why do you laugh? Why do you smile? You see, it's just like any other response to the stimuli. Why do I move my hands? Why do you make so many gestures? You make all those gestures because you feel that you are not expressing yourself adequately. You are backing your statements with these gestures. We all started that way. That was the only mode of communication we had, and slowly we developed the language. But still you feel that you are not able to communicate, convey to your fellow beings whatever you are trying to say. So that is why we have these different gestures to back up and strengthen what we are trying to communicate to others. So if you go to Italy, they have one kind of gestures. If you go to India, they have another kind of gestures. In America, Americans have different gestures. I don't know, even probably those gestures are also movements of her hand, also transmitted through the genes. I really
Yes,
don't
and they're
know.
learned anyway.
They're not only learning, you see, they say that it is transmitted through the genes. We really don't know. You know, I met a lady there in Italy, and they were separated immediately after the birth of the baby, the son. They never met for 20 years, the boy and the father. And the mother always, either she projected, you see, what he thought, she projected and placed the gestures of the boy within the framework of her husband, and said to herself, you see, it's like that, but they never met, but she found that his gestures were no different from the gestures of her husband. And when they met, the father and son met for the first time, he was surprised that he was making the same gestures as himself. So it does not prove anything. Just to suggest that maybe even this is transmitted through the genes. We really don't know. We yet don't know what part these genes play and how the whole thing is transmitted from generation to generation.
I wonder, seeing that, as we've been saying, or you've been saying through this, that the physical body is the key to the whole thing. But it's the responsive thing.
I don't know why you are saying that. You see, the way you are putting it is not
quite true.
I didn't say not quite true. It doesn't give the feeling, or it gives me the feeling that that is the only function. I really don't know. I have no way of knowing it. So even this idea of separating the body and talking in terms of pure and simple physical responses maybe is misleading. I really don't know.
It was actually a lead into this. Has it been said to you, because that you really, the ultimate movement in you is almost the one of in the consciousness of the normal pattern, the philosophical patterns of the human psyche that they're talking about now, really that you are a nihilist in the sense of the old pattern. Now, I know, I've just put another word on top of the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. You see that.
Or
People call me a nihilist, people call me a materialist, people even go to the extent of calling me an atheist because I say that God is irrelevant. It does not mean that I'm an atheist. That's all. But it is their privilege to stick all these labels on me. They call me a God man, they call me a guru, they call me God knows what. You see. So I'm not interested in what kind of labels they stick on me. This is what I have come into. And I told you the other day that mystique, which is a mistake of enlightenment, was translated by somebody in Poland and submitted to the government for publication. That was the only department that published the books in Poland. And so they rejected the book, saying that the author of that book is a nihilist. You see?
It was out of that I asked the question.
Yes, now they have published that book now, after the things that happened there in Poland, the collapse of the communist government. That book finally has come out in print. So the present government most probably don't want to put me in that frame and call me a nihilist. I don't know.
Is there any final word you would like to say about the inner part of what you're sensing of what...
When once the demand to bring about a change and to be different from what actually is there is absent, what you are left with is something which can never be experienced by me. That's the reason why I say I'm just an ordinary man. Just an ordinary man. So people want to fit me into that framework of an ordinary man and tell themselves that you are not an ordinary man. So you become and remain, you remain an ordinary man. The moment the demand to be something different ceases. That moment is absent, totally. So I say I'm an ordinary man because everybody thinks that I'm not an ordinary man, that I'm a sage, that I'm a philosopher, that I'm this, that and the other. I'm just an ordinary man. I don't go around with my head high and telling myself and telling everybody I'm just an ordinary man. So when I say that I'm an ordinary man, they have the same problem and they can't fit me into the idea they have of an ordinary man. They are not going to succeed.
Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you.